As is a weekly tradition, or sometimes a weekly tradition, we're going to look back. We're going to predict what I think the upcoming game week 22 of the Premier League, will look like. So without further ado, that is what we're going to be doing here once again. I'm going to start with my game week 21 reaction, and then we shall move on to my game week 22 predictions themselves. They're all timestamped down below if you want to skip forward, but without further ado, let's react to my game week 21 predictions. I'm going to start on Saturday with Liverpool versus Chelsea. So this was El Shitico, two clubs which are not performing where they should be at all, and the result was just as disappointing, a 0-0 draw. I predicted 1-1, and boy was I wrong. Chelsea did look the better side here in my opinion, and Mudryk made a very promising debut, although that was mostly against a 77-year-old James Milner, who, well yeah, let's just say he couldn't keep up. And then move on to Leicester City versus Brighton Hove Albion. I predicted 4-1 to Brighton Hove Albion. It's actually 2-2, fair play. Leicester turned up and gave Brighton a really tough match and almost managed to claim all 3 points, but Evan Ferguson had other ideas. It's a shame he's going to be out for Brighton because of a very, very reckless tackle during the FA Cup and somehow didn't get a red. I'll never know, but very impressive game from Leicester. Then move on to Southampton versus Aston Villa. I predicted 2-1 to Aston Villa, but it was actually just 1-0 to Aston Villa. The Saints were in a good run of form, but could not overcome Villa. It was a tight match for both teams, but I'd say the Saints looked the better side, to be honest. They were very fortunate to have 2 goals disallowed, because they really did outplay Villa for the most part. It was just very unlucky for them. And then move on to West Ham United versus Everton. I predicted 1-0 to West Ham. It was actually 2-0, so fair play. Everton didn't look great as West Ham ran riot in London. Al Sakio ended in West Ham's favour, as we later saw Frank Lampard getting the sack and Sean Dyche brought in. But yeah, I still think Moyes' job could be on the line if he doesn't step it up soon. And then move on to Bournemouth versus Nottingham Forest. Oh, good God. I predicted 1-0 to Forest. It was actually a 1-1 draw. And Forest, despite starting the match really well with an early goal that unfortunately was disallowed, Bournemouth soon took control, and through Jadon Anthony, they grabbed the opener. Surge managed to grab Forest a point in a game which we really did not deserve to draw. I thought Bournemouth were the better side throughout that match. They really gave us a tough game. They are our bogey team, and it looks like we've finally broken the Bournemouth curse. But yeah, we did not deserve a point in that match, but we were very unfortunate to have a goal disallowed as well, so swings and roundabouts, I guess. Then move on to Crystal Palace versus Newcastle United. Now, I predicted 3-0 to Newcastle, but it was actually just a 0-0 draw. Newcastle were dominant, but they were not wearing their scoring boots this time as they could not break down Palace. Both keepers were immense in this match and kept the scores level, pulling out some brilliant saves, especially Guaita for Crystal Palace. He really kept his side in the match, but my God. So Newcastle need to find their scoring shoes or they're not going to end up in a European spot. And then move on to the Sunday matches, and we start off with Man City versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. I predicted 4-0 to Man City. It was actually just 3-0. Come on lads, you're slacking here. It was another Haaland masterclass as he scores a hat-trick to put Wolves to bed. Wolves did have a few chances here and there, but it was pretty much all City. The robot is back. And then move on to Leeds United versus Brentford. I predicted 2-1 to Brentford. It was 0-0. Again, a match where the keepers kept their teams in it. Despite brilliant chances from both sides, they could not score a goal. Neither team were really dominant as they both looked pretty evenly matched. But both teams also played some good football as well. And then move on to Arsenal versus Manchester United. Honestly, one of the best games of the season. This was a brilliant match. I predicted 1-0 to Arsenal. It's actually 3-2. United took the lead, then Arsenal, then United tied it, and then Arsenal won it. At the death, no less. What a game that was to watch. Both teams are playing some of the best football we've ever seen from them, and it was such a good match to watch, and this might seal the title, honestly. Arsenal even have a game in hand over Manchester City, so it's just crazy. Yeah, I can't see City catching them. Arsenal might have won the league, to be honest. And finally, Monday. Fulham versus Tottenham. I predicted 2-1 to Spurs. It was actually 1-0. Both teams looked fairly evenly matched, but Spurs gained the vital 3 points for their European push. It easily could have been a draw though, to be honest. Spurs weren't great, and Fulham were good. But this match was the one that saw Kane equal Sir Jimmy Greaves' goal-scoring record, which is a brilliant achievement whether you support Spurs or not, so fair play. So yes, those have been my reaction to Game Week 21. As you can see, I didn't get any predictions right. We're now going to look forward to game week 22. We've got some juicy matches there. So let's see if I get any of these ones correct. Spoiler alert, probably not. Okay, so we're going to start off with the Friday fixture, and that is Chelsea versus Fulham. A lovely West London derby to start off the week in a match where Fulham are actually above Chelsea in the table. Chelsea have brought in about 700 players during this winter window, so it will take some time for those new players to gel, but Chelsea are suffering from a lot of injuries at the moment. Fulham are looking good, as I've mentioned, and I've only brought in a couple of players this winter, so getting them up to speed will take a lot quicker time than it will for Chelsea. I think this Chelsea side though will see an upturn in form after playing well against a dire Liverpool side, so I'm going to say 1-0. I think Chelsea will share the points with Fulham in this West London derby. Fulham are a very solid side this season under Marco Silva, whereas Potter's Chelsea is still trying to find their style and get to grips with how he wants them to play. But you can see them slowly getting better. Mudryk looked great in his debut off the bench, and I'd be surprised if he didn't start in this match, because I can see him causing Fulham quite a lot of problems. He's a very fast player. I wouldn't be surprised if he scored against Fulham, to be honest. That's not to discount the Cottagers, of course, but Mudryk does look like a brilliant player, and you can see why they showed out a lot of money for him. And then move on to the Saturday fixtures, and our first one is Everton versus Arsenal. So yeah, Sean Dyche is really thrown into the deep end with his first match being at top of the league Gunners. If the new manager bounce is real, it could be a huge win for Everton. However, as much as I love Sean Dyche, I really can't see this happening against Arsenal. This Arsenal side have really shown themselves to be title contenders this season, and I don't think Everton are the ones to put a dent in those hopes. I'm going to say 3-0 to Arsenal. I can't see the Toffees causing much trouble at all for Arsenal. Even at home, this Arsenal side are just insane. And while we might see some improvement from their week or so under Dyche, it won't be fully seen until they face a squad they're more level to. If by some miracle Everton do win, the scenes will be insane, and it will give the Everton squad a huge boost in confidence, but I can't see that happening. It's going to be a huge ask of you. And then move on to Brighton Hove Albion versus Bournemouth. A little seaside derby here as the Cherries travel to Brighton, who've been playing very well this season, only slightly stumbling to Leicester, which they put behind them with an FA Cup win over Liverpool, and what an emphatic win that was. Bournemouth, meanwhile, have not been playing too great, without a league win in 5 matches, only drawing one of those as well. It'll be an uphill battle for the Cherries, as they failed to keep a clean sheet in their last 7 matches, league and cup, and we know Brighton, they love to score goals. Brighton under Potter were a good team, but under De Zerbi, they are such attacking force to be reckoned with, even more so than they were under Potter. Bournemouth have good players, and they brought in some really good reinforcements during the winter window to help their bid for survival. Not sure how many of those will play in this match, depends if they can get up to speed quick enough, but I'm going to have to say 3-0 to Brighton. It will be another Brighton demolition job in my opinion. Players like Matoma and March have really come good, and even losing a player like Trossard has not affected Brighton's ability to score goals. Bournemouth don't know how to keep a clean sheet at the moment, and Brighton are definitely the team who are going to exploit that. But to what extent is the real question, because honestly I could see them scoring maybe 5 goals, it really depends. And then move on to Manchester United versus Crystal Palace. Manchester United face Palace at Old Trafford, only a few weeks after the Red Devils drew at Sellers Park. They were looking to go one better and keep all 3 points in Manchester this time around though. Crystal Palace have not won their last 4 league games, but 2 of those were draws, so it's a bit more positive than that Bournemouth record. Manchester United play some really good football under Ten Hag, and a really good side to watch, especially when they get into full flow. Both sides are nursing some injuries though, but United currently have more players out than Palace, which will no doubt have an effect on them. I'm sure they've got enough quality in their squad to cover any absentees they may have. I'm going to say 2-0 to United. I can't really see United being too troubled by Palace. Old Trafford is always a tough place to go, and United are currently making it into a fortress, so Palace will no doubt have a really tough time. United have been scoring goals for fun recently, whereas Palace, they've been struggling to score multiple goals. They can score one here and there, but adding to that seems like a real challenge for them at the moment. United need to ensure they can stay switched on for the full 90 minutes to avoid sharing the points like they did last time. And then move on to Brentford versus Southampton. It looks like Brentford won't succumb to second season syndrome, as they're currently sitting 8th in the league. They host bottom of the league Southampton, whose form has been better as of late, but still not great. It will not be an easy clash for the Saints, as Brentford are a really good side who can be very hard to break down. But Southampton have been very busy in this window, bringing in multiple players in a bid for Premier League survival, and you can't really blame them. Some of those players do look promising, and I imagine we'll see some of them make their debuts in this match too. But I'm going to say 3-0 to Brentford. This should be a fairly easy clash for Brentford, As I mentioned, they play some really good football and have claimed some really big scalps this season. One that comes immediately to mind is Liverpool. I have no doubt they'll claim another one here. Southampton have had an uptick in form after they beat Man City in the Cup, but that form has since dipped and they have a huge fight in their hands to stay up. I think it's unwise to base the fact they'll stay up over beating Man City in the Cup. Brentford will not be easy for them to break down, as Raya is a brilliant keeper who's been performing very well at the moment. I know a lot of Premier League clubs eyeing him up come end of the season. And then we move on to Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Liverpool. Wolves host a struggling Liverpool side in what could be a huge match for Klopp's side. Last season this would have been an easy win for Liverpool, but this season I wouldn't be so sure. Liverpool are currently sat 9th in the league, which for them is not great. I know a lot of teams that will be chomping at the bit to finish 9th. Wolves themselves have not had a great season either, currently sitting in 17th in the league, just above the relegation zone. They've slowly dragged themselves out of the relegation zone and will be looking to continue that bid for survival. But I think Liverpool will win this match 1-0. Do you think Liverpool will manage to beat Wolves? I mean, they've been unlucky this season with their new signings. They haven't had the impact that was expected of them. This Wolves side has also struggled this season. However, they've brought in a couple of winter arrivals under Lopetegui and look posed to survive another season. But obviously, time will tell. Liverpool should outmanage a win though. And then move on to Aston Villa versus Leicester City. The Villains host a Leicester side which has not been performing too well in the league. In good news for Leicester fans though, James Maddison looks to be back, which will massively help Leicester climb up the table. Aston Villa have come into some good form recently, especially after Emery has come in, and have played some really positive football. They did lose Ings during the winter window, so it remains to be seen if they'll be able to score goals. I'm going to say 1-1 I think. Both sides are quite evenly matched in my opinion, and I'm sure both of them will score as well. As I mentioned though, I'm not sure where Villa's goals will come from. I know they have goal scorers in their ranks, but will it be enough to beat Leicester is the real question. We know Leicester have goal scorers, but I can't really see them overcoming Villa that much to be honest. So I do think both teams will end it in a draw, which, you know, getting points on the board is always positive. Then move on to Newcastle United versus West Ham United. Now this is two sides which are at almost opposite spots in the table. And you know, they have quite opposite seasons as well. Last season, West Ham were flying quite high, or Newcastle sort of wallowing near the bottom, and now it's really switched up. Moyes is still on a knife edge after scraping past El Sacchio. However, this is against a Newcastle side that are playing really well and playing some really good football this season, so Moyes could be given a bit of leeway should they lose to Newcastle. West Ham are in the relegation mixer at the moment, and this Newcastle side is not one you want to face in that position. I'm going to say 2-0 to Newcastle. I can't see Newcastle having too much trouble with West Ham at St James's Park. Both sides have made a couple moves in the winter window, so it'll be interesting to see if any of those new signings make their debut in this match, possibly off the bench. Newcastle are really cementing their claim to European football this season, and I honestly think they will manage it, and this match will be a huge 3 points in that quest for European football next season. The Geordies have every possibility to do that. I mean, they're going to Wembley as well for the first time in like 24 years or something, so it's a good time to be a Geordie fan. And then we move on to the Sunday fixtures, and we start off with Nottingham Forest versus Leeds United. Now this is a big match, as 13th place host 15th place is what is a big match for both sides' Premier League survival. Forest have unfortunately accrued a lengthy injury list at the moment, but have invested in the summer and have some quality players in the squad who will be getting some valuable game time. The United States of Leeds, however, are looking a lot better off in the injury side of things. They have a much shorter injury list, and we're also very active in the winter window, bringing in a lot of American talent. But I'm going to say 2-1. Despite our very lengthy injury list, I do see Forest coming out on top. Leeds are a very good side, and under Marshall play some good attacking football, and have made brilliant signings to strengthen their squad. But the City Ground is special, and I know the fans will give this squad a huge lift to continue our quest for survival. It will be a different Forest side to the one we know, but I have so much faith in our boys to come out on top. I mean, we're definitely going to see some of the new winter signings play in this match because of what our injury situation is looking like. But I think we have what it takes to overcome Leeds United, especially at home. Maybe if it was at their place, it'd be a different question. But for now, at the City Ground, I have full faith in Nottingham Forest. And then we move on to Tottenham Hotspur versus Manchester City. Now this is a big clash for both sides. City is still chasing Arsenal, Spurs rivals, and Tottenham is still chasing Champions League football. At the moment, it's looking unlikely, but they've made a few additions in the winter, so their squad is looking somewhat stronger. Manchester City haven't made too many moves in the window, but their squad is already very strong, as we know. There's every chance Tottenham could beat City. They've done it before. We know they love to do that as well. It's a very Tottenham thing to do. This Tottenham at the moment is a very strange side, in my opinion. Like, they have a very solid squad with brilliant players, but they can't seem to perform together as you'd expect. I'm going to say 3-1 to Manchester City. Man City aren't running away with the league as was expected when they signed Haaland this season, but I do think they'll beat Tottenham fairly easily. Their side is currently better than Tottenham's, and that could be seen when they put 4 past them in January. There won't be as many goals as we saw in Manchester, in Tottenham's beautiful stadium, but it should be a fairly comfortable win for City nonetheless. And finally, a Wednesday clash between Manchester United and Leeds United. The final clash of this game week sees Manchester United host Leeds, and I can really only see one result at Old Trafford. Now, this clash is known as the Roses rivalry for those who are unaware. Now, this isn't really a high-tempered derby. In recent times, I don't think tempers have really been high for this clash, recently at least. But yeah, both teams do play some good football, and on their day, either side could take it. So I have no doubt this is going to be a good clash to watch. But on paper, Manchester United are the better side, although we thought the same when Leeds travelled to Liverpool. And look what happened. I say that, but I do not see a repeat of that massive upset. I'm going to say 2-1 to Manchester United. I think Leeds may be able to grab a goal. They do have quality goal scorers, and Manchester United may make a mistake or two which Leeds could exploit. However, Manchester United are a very well-drilled side and will give Leeds a great game. But with players like Rashford in great form, it's always going to be a tough match and a tough ask to keep him out. I can't see the Red Devils having too much trouble in this Roses rivalry, but of course you never know with Leeds. So anyway, those have been my Game Week 22 predictions. I'm hopeful that I'm going to get some of these right, but if I get one right, I'll be happy. So anyway, I hope you have enjoyed. If you do have any of your predictions of your own, please leave them down below. I do love reading the comments, even if I do not reply to them. And yeah, I shall see you guys in the next video. Peace.